Today we will be talking about slope. Specifically, what is slope and how do we find it when we have a graph? How do I know what the slope of that graph is? And when we have 2 points, how do I find the slope algebraically? So first off, slope is all around us. Slope tells us how steep something is. So if you think of a ski slope, that's something most people associate with slope. The steeper the mountain, the harder the ski slope. The harder the skiing, the faster you would ski down it because it's a steep mountain. So that slope telling me how steep the mountain is. But other things have slope, stairs. Some stairs are more steep than others. Or maybe a ramp. A lot of times you want your ramp to be maybe a little less steep so it's easier to go up and down the ramp. And then also things like bike ramps have a slope that you might want to be steep or not, depending on what you're doing with it, like these children. So slope is all around us. Today we're going to look at slope specifically on a linear graph. So a graph that is a line. So the slope of a line tells us two things. So we're talking about a graph that is a straight line. The slope of that line will tell me two things about the line. First, it's going to tell me how steep the line is, like we talked about with the ski slope. How steep is the line? We could have maybe something really steep, like would be hard for this man to park on. You have to make sure you have your emergency brake on. Or maybe a little less steep, like this roof on this house here. The other thing it can tell me is which direction is the line going. When you're looking at the direction of a line, you always want to read, just like you read a book, left to right. So for these arrows, I have this arrow would be pointing down because it's pointing down from left to right. This one would be pointing up from left to right. So down from left to right or up from left to right. So the first thing we're going to be looking at are the different types of slope. There are 4 different types of slope. You can have a positive slope. This would be denoted by a positive number. So the slope would be a positive number. And that tells me that the slope is pointing up from left to right. So our little turtle would be going uphill. It doesn't tell me how steep the line is. It just tells me which direction it's going. So the sign positive tells me the direction of the line. So in this case, it's going up because it's positive from left to right. As you can see, it could be a less steep line or a more steep line, but they're both pointing up, so they both have a positive slope. The second type is negative slope. So similarly, negative tells me it's going down from left to right. So our little turtle would be going downhill from left to right. Again, it doesn't tell me how steep it is. So it could be very steep or less steep, but it does tell me the direction. I'm pointing down from left to right. That's denoted by a negative number for your slope. The next 2 types of slope are your special cases. So the first special case is zero slope. That means my slope denoted M. Slope M, the letter M stands for slope. I don't know why, but that's what it stands for. M is slope. So zero slope means my slope equals 0. And that's a horizontal line. I like to think of it as flat ground. I'm not going uphill, I'm not going downhill, I'm flat, completely flat. So a horizontal line tells me the slope is 0. No incline, no decline. An undefined slope is the other special case, and that's a vertical line. And as you see, my little turtle is saying, uh-oh, because he can't stand on a vertical line. He's not Spider-Man, so he would fall off. So if you think undefined slope, that's your vertical line. That's the one you can't stand on. You're not going uphill, you're not going downhill. You can't even stand on it. It's undefined. So a vertical line has an undefined slope. Now let's discover how to find the slope from a graph. So here we have a line graphed, and I want to know what is the slope of this line. So here are the steps to finding that. First, you need to choose 2 points. And you always want to choose whole number points. And that means you want to pick points that cross through a corner of your graph. So for example, right here at negative 5, 1. That line's going straight through the corner. I can tell that's the whole number point, negative 5, 1. So that's a point I would want to use. I would not want to use this one right here because it's not going through a corner. So I would have to estimate, use decimals, and it's much easier to find the slope if you know whole numbers. So always go through a corner. Here's the 2 points I chose, negative 5, 1 and 0, 3, because the line is crossing directly through a corner of the graph there. Those are whole numbers. Another one I could have used is 5, 5. See, it crosses through the corner at 5, 5, and I could have used that. Any corner is fine, but you want to choose 2 points. Starting on the left point, so the one all the way to the left, I want to figure out how many spaces up or down I would need to count to get to the other point on the right. So in this case, I'm going to be moving up 2 spaces to be able to get over to this line, to this point over here. Up 2. Because I'm going up 2 spaces, then I'm going to use a positive value. So I'm going to do a positive 2. If I were to have to go down 2 to get to the other point, I would use a negative number. Now I want to count how many spaces to the right to get to the other point. In this case, that's 5. I count 5 spaces over to get to the point. So 5 is my run. So my rise, how much up and down I need to move, is a positive 2, and my run is 5. So my slope is always written as rise over run, how many up or down, divided by how many left or right. And then I will reduce the fraction as necessary. My rise was 2, my run was 5, so my slope is 2 over 5. Because the fraction 2 over 5 does not reduce, that is my final answer, and do leave it as a fraction. That will help us later. Here's another example. I have a line. This one already had 2 points picked out for me, so go ahead and use the points they gave you. Start on the left point, count how many spaces up or down to get to the other point. In this case, I'm going to move up 4 spaces. Then I need to count how many to the right. And in this case, that's 6. So my rise is a positive 4 because I went up 4, and my run is 6. So therefore, my slope is 4 divided by 6. Because 4 divided by 6 can be reduced, you always do reduce it, and it reduces to 2 over 3. So my final answer is my slope is 2 over 3. For the second problem, again, they gave me points. So I will use those points that they gave me. Start on the left point. This time, I need to go down to get to the right point. And I went down 4 spaces. So because I went down, it's a negative 4. Now I need to find my run. That's going to the right, 4 spaces. So my rise was negative 4 because I went down, and my run was 4 because I went to the right. So my slope is negative 4 divided by 4. Well, because negative 4 divided by 4 reduces, then I do reduce the fraction. Negative 4 divided by 4 is negative 1. So therefore, my slope in this problem is negative 1. And that is your final answer. This would be an example of a special case. This is a horizontal line. So it's not going up or down. It's just flat. It's a flat horizontal line. So for this problem, there is no rise. I'm not going up or down any to get from one point to another on this line. I'm on a flat surface. So my rise would be 0. Because I'm not rising or falling, that means my slope is 0. So a horizontal line has a 0 slope. I always think of 0 slope as flat. No incline is flat. So a horizontal line is flat, and that has a 0 slope. So the way I would write that is m, which represents slope, equals 0. So my slope would be 0. Any horizontal line, no matter where it is on the graph, if it is horizontal, the slope is 0. So it doesn't take much thinking. As long as you know the special case, horizontal line, slope is 0. The second special case is a vertical line. In this case, I have no run. My run would be 0. And therefore, the slope is undefined. And that's because no matter how many up or down I go, if I divide by 0, I'm not allowed to do that. Type it in your calculator. It will always give you an error. You cannot divide by 0 in math. So therefore, this is going to give me an undefined slope. I like to think of it as I can't stand on this kind of line. I'm not going uphill or downhill or flat. I would just fall off because I'm not Spider-Man. So if you cannot stand on the line, then it is an undefined slope. So the solution to this problem, you would write it as m equals undefined. There is no slope. There's no number for the slope. It's just undefined. Now you will answer a few problems to check for your understanding, and then we will continue by learning how to find the slope algebraically between 2 points, not using the graph.